For the last 4 weeks, we've devoted our in-depth segment to equal time interviews with the 4 candidates for governor. We have heard from Independent Dr. Irvin Yen, Libertarian Natalie Bruno, Democrat Joy Hoffmeister, and today we conclude with the incumbent, Republican Governor Kevin Stitt, who sat down with moderator Susan Cadeau in our OETA studios on Wednesday morning.
Rich, we have invited every gubernatorial candidate in Oklahoma to our studios for a 15-minute in-depth interview. Now, to keep things fair, we have the same list of topics for each candidate, but we'll ask follow-up questions if more explanation is needed. With that said, let's get started on this week's interview with Republican candidate, the current sitting governor of the state of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt. Governor, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me and getting our messages out across the state. It's so important.
That's right, and this is statewide, and so it's a great avenue to share ideas. And the first question I want to ask you is the easy one. Tell us something about yourself that folks may not know. Let's get to know you.
Well, thank you so much for that. You know, I'm a fourth generation Oklahoma and grew up in Norman, and went to school in Stillwater. Met my wife in Tulsa when I got my first job over there, and we've been married for 24 years.
Wow.
And we have 6 children, so big family.
Yeah.
I've got 2 kids in college and 4 still at home. I absolutely love our state, but I love the Western way of life too. So I love riding horses. And an interesting fact I tell people is I can ride a unicycle.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Well, maybe sometime we can get some video of that.
Pull one out. Occasionally people will pull it out and I'll have to prove it. And once you learn to ride
amazing.
a unicycle, it's like riding a bike. You never forget.
You never forget.
Yep.
Okay. The next question I want to ask you is you've been governor, but the next question is why did you want to be governor? So let's go back. What was it that made you decide to run for governor in the first place? You know,
first off, I think our founders never envisioned politics would be a career profession. And I was in Tulsa and raising my family and running my business. And if you remember 4 years ago, our state was in trouble. We were having teacher walkouts, 4-day school weeks, budget deficits. And I got inspired to run. And I think that's what our founders envisioned is you'd be a successful business person or farmer or rancher and you would leave that and go serve your state. And today we have the largest savings account we've ever had. We have invested more in education than any other governor before me. Our economy seems to really be diversifying. We actually hit lowest unemployment in our state's history just a few months ago. And so really excited about the momentum we have. And that's why I ran. I just knew my state was not living up to its potential. And I wanted a business approach and a fresh set of eyes running a $25 billion business.
Let's talk about education for a minute. That's one on our list of topics. And you mentioned the surplus funds, which is a good thing. But some have said that, if we have these surplus funds, why aren't we paying our teachers more? Why aren't we investing in our schools more? What say you?
Yeah, so number one, when I first came into office, that was what was happening, was the legislature would spend every dime they had and increase the base level expenses all across state government. Well, we know that revenue doesn't just always go up in a straight line. So the moment you have a downturn, now you're having to cut and you're having all this chaos in the state capitol. You notice it hasn't been like that for 4 years because we've been fiscally disciplined. And I've put more money in education than any governor in history. We have given our teachers a pay raise. We passed a bill this year called the Redbud Bill to put more money in rural schools. But at the same time, and I've also cut taxes for Oklahomans. So we have to be disciplined and fiscally responsible and invest strategically all across the state. The other thing I remind people is I gave our law enforcement a 30% pay increase this year, which is so important to me and Oklahomans that we all live in safe communities. We're going to back the blue as long as I'm governor.
All right. I want to switch over to the energy sector right now. The economy, as you mentioned in Oklahoma, the foundation is energy in Oklahoma. But these days we're faced with energy versus environment. I know you've spoken to that a little bit in the past. How do you balance that? Is the environment important?
Well, absolutely. And I think, all of our companies are focused on making sure that we do things the right way. We take care of our employees and we take care of our environment. And when I think about Oklahoma, we have reduced our carbon emissions by 3 times the national average just since 2005. And a lot of that is because of clean burning natural gas. But the Biden administration is attacking our way of life in Oklahoma. They're attacking the oil and gas industry. They're taxing it. They're canceling the Keystone Pipeline. They're making it impossible to get new permits in a lot of cases. Here's the problem with that. Demand is the same. We're all still heating our homes and our businesses. We're driving to work and taking our kids to school and football practice and piano lessons. And so when you choke off supply, demand's the same, then prices are going to go up. And that's why we're seeing 40-year highs inflation. We're seeing more things costing more at the grocery store and at the gas pump. Oklahoma does it so well.
What's the answer to that then?
The answer is to unleash and take your thumb off of trying to pick winners and losers. Oklahoma, I brag on Oklahoma when I meet with President Biden and when I meet with their Secretary of Energy. We're number 4 in oil production, number 3 in natural gas in the entire country. But here's what they don't realize. We're number 2 in wind energy production. Oklahoma, we believe in more of everything. We're not afraid of having a conversation about renewables. I'm actually recruiting more. I've signed an MOU with the governor of Arkansas and Louisiana to bring a hydrogen hub here to Oklahoma. So we're not afraid of that. We want more wind, more oil and gas. But the problem is the Biden administration and that party won't have an honest conversation about the need for oil and natural gas, because what their solution isn't working, because they're just simply asking Russia and OPEC to produce more oil. We need to unleash Oklahoma companies.
All right, I want to go back to education because I forgot to ask you about something that I have asked every other candidate, and that is about vouchers. There's been a lot of talk about the voucher system. I believe one of your opponents has called it a scheme. What is it, a scheme?
Well, first off, I want to speak directly to Oklahomans, especially in rural Oklahoma. The lies and chaos that these special interests have been mailing you flyers saying I'm going to defund your rural school, that's nonsense. Everybody knows that's crazy. I will continue to put more money in education than any other governor in history. The Redbud bill actually specifically funded more money to rural schools. So it's just chaos. They're twisting it. What we're talking about is in Tulsa, Oklahoma, North Tulsa, South Oklahoma City. If there's schools that are closed down like they were during COVID for 355 days, parents need more options. If you have a kid, we already have scholarships in Oklahoma. It's called the Equal Opportunity Scholarship Fund. It's called the Henry Scholarship, Lindsay Nicole Henry. If you have an IEP and you're not getting your needs met at a certain school, you can go somewhere.
Explain that.
IEP is an individual education plan. So if you have dyslexia, or if you have some kind of special needs, learning disability, or not even really a disability, but just a different way to learn. With 6 children, not all of my kids learn the same way. Yeah. And so sometimes kids need different programs. But as far as our rural schools, we will absolutely make sure that every dollar goes to those rural schools, and we love our rural communities. They're so close to the communities. They're teaching kids, not indoctrinating them. But there's some parents in other schools that need more options, and that's what we're fighting for.
Our next topic is abortion. I know that's been a big issue in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma has garnered attention in the national spotlight for your stance on abortion, and you've been highly criticized for that stance. Why do you take that stance that you do? And I think everyone knows, but for those who don't, would you explain it?
Yeah, well, first off, I don't think I've been criticized by Oklahomans. I might have been criticized by the liberals on the East Coast or the West Coast, but my opponents won't give an answer. The most extreme position is my opponent's. She's siding more with North Korea and China than Oklahomans, because she will not admit when life begins. They want to abort babies all the way up until birth, which is absolutely unbelievable. And the other lie that people tell you is that the Supreme Court banned abortion in the United States. That's not true. It's simply pushed that back to the states where it belongs, and every state's going to do things differently. And we want to be a pro-life state. And we want to be the state that protects moms, protects babies, is the easiest adoption state. So those are the things that we're working on. But my opponent wants to side with California and New York and Colorado and abort babies all the way up into birth. And that's not where Oklahomans stand.
Do you really think it's that extreme for your main opponent?
Well, yes, because during our TV debate a couple weeks ago, she would not answer when she believes that life begins and when would she stop abortion. What people need to understand is every state's going to do things differently. Some states might do a 15-week ban. France, the country of France, bans abortion between 12 and 14 weeks. Some states are going to do a heartbeat bill at maybe 6 to 8 weeks. So we can have these conversations, but we certainly know that life begins before the moment of birth.
During that debate, you said if someone put something on your desk about rape or incest, you would consider signing it that would allow abortion in those instances.
Yeah, we do. We already have. I did say that, and we would sign that. And the other thing is, we already have life of the mother, and these are some tough situations, and we're going to support our healthcare professions to make the right decisions for these dire situations when the life of the mother's at risk, and we let our health professionals decide that.
I want to talk about polling. Everyone is watching the polls in this race, and I think nationally, everyone's watching the polls in every race because this is such a big issue for America. So what do you think of the polls that have your main opponent, Democrat Joy Hoffmeister, creeping up on you or even being ahead of you in the polls?
The great thing about this is we're all going to know on November 8th because it'll be up to the Oklahomans to vote. I believe that I stand where Oklahomans stand. We do not want to go backwards. The turnaround that Oklahomans elected me to do 4 years ago, it's working. And I believe that Oklahomans overwhelmingly will support me on Election Day. So I don't put much credence in polls. I don't poll before I make decisions for Oklahomans. I know what Oklahomans are thinking and what we want for our state. We want to be a top 10 state in everything we do. We believe in smaller government, lower taxes, traditional family values. So that's how I'm going to lead, and I look forward to putting it out there. That's why I love these programs, showing the difference between me and my opponent. And then I'm happy with whatever Oklahoma decides.
Well, when it comes to polling, some people talk about transparency. They feel like there's a lack of transparency, and there's been some criticism of some of the dealings they see from the governor's office. Would you like to address that?
Here's the deal. We've audited more state agencies than any other governor. We've got the largest savings account in state history. I have lower taxes. I'm trying to get a grocery tax done for Oklahomans, which is really a regressive tax. People on fixed incomes or on the lower that have a lower income spend more of their money on groceries than people on the higher income. So again, it's unfortunate that there's some dark money groups spending unprecedented amount of monies in Oklahoma, $25 million to spread lies and chaos to try to buy this election and confuse Oklahomans. Simply not true. But if there's something going on, report it to the district attorney, report it to the attorney general's office. I will hold every vendor accountable, every state agency, as long as I'm governor. So again, a lot of nonsense, and people are too smart for it. They know it's an election year. They know my opponent, and she's working with the special interest groups to try to buy this election.
Fair enough. Let's move on to tribes and the McGirt decision. Wow, and that's still going on, the fallout from the McGirt decision. First of all, talk about why is it important to have a good relationship with Oklahoma's tribes?
Yeah, well, first off, there is such a big difference between being proud of our heritage and our tribal folks in Oklahoma. I'm actually a tribal member. So is my mom, all 6 of my children, all of my cousins, rodeo in the Indian Rodeo Association. I am so proud of our Native American heritage. And that's part of who we are as Oklahomans. But there's a big difference when they run ads and say that, and they try to confuse the public to say that I don't like Indian tribes. That's not true. But I am pro-Oklahoma, and I will not federalize my state. And the McGirt decision tried to kick Oklahoma out of eastern Oklahoma on law and order, to be able to prosecute crimes the same way. Don't ask me, ask the city of Tulsa and the district attorneys over in the eastern part of the state and the police and the chaos that was ensued. So I'm not going to federalize eastern Oklahoma. We're all one state. We have to have one set of rules, regardless of your race or your heritage or where you live. We can't treat different races differently. Again, huge difference between me and my opponent. She said she was for federalizing eastern Oklahoma. She thinks that you should have 2 sets of rules. So she thinks that people with native heritage don't have to pay taxes, but everybody else should. I fundamentally disagree with that because it is a statewide issue. We have an equalization. If there's $1 less of tax in the eastern part of the state, that means there's $1 less that goes into schools in the western part of the state.
Okay. Our last topic, as we wind down our time, is going to be criminal justice reform. We have an issue with crime rate in Oklahoma. how do we get a hold of that? You say we back the blue, you're funding police. What else needs to be done?
Well, first off, we're going to prosecute all bad guys. We're going to be a law and order state. We're going to fund our district attorneys appropriately. And at the same time, when I took over, we were last place in incarceration rates in Oklahoma. We've moved the needle. I've actually closed down 2 private prisons. We are number 1 in the country right now in lowest recidivism rate. That means people going back into prison. We're leading the country in fewer people going back into prison. So we've done some great policy items to do some second chances. Again, this is where my opponent tried to make this an issue. And at the same time, we will be in law and order state. If you notice, I give all of our law and order all the tools they need, all the district attorneys, everything they need to make sure that we lock up the people that we're afraid of, and we give second chances to people that maybe we're just mad at.
All right, Governor, that's our time. I'd like to thank you so much for coming to our studios and speaking with us.
Thank you so much.
And that wraps up our series of interviews with every gubernatorial candidate who will be on the ballot in Oklahoma November 8th. We hope it was informative, and we encourage everyone to vote. Back to you, Rich.